Ready for the video?
Yeah, I think I am.
Let's do it. Wow.
I'm saying it's just an idea. Selfishness.
I like that.
At least with selfishness, be generous.
The whole world as yours, wouldn't you just do good for everyone?
Wow, yeah. But it's helping them, so even though it's for other people. Interesting.
Present practice. What's conscious? This is Vish and
Kat.
And today we'll be responding to Sadhguru's video on
It's good to be selfish.
My name is Vish. I'm an aspiring yogi, love all things meditation, yoga, and wisdom based. Super thankful to have Kat on the show. Want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kat. Thank you for having me. I'm a model in the Austin area.
Well, thanks for sharing that and thanks for being here. What does it mean to be selfish to you? Would love to hear your perspective before we start the video.
So if the video title is It's Good to Be Selfish, I guess we're talking about selfishness in the way of being self-focused, which is a good thing. And a lot of times we think of selfishness as walking over other people for our own good. That's bad. But selfishness is used to describe like both of those things, and so I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about the idea of selfishness. So.
Thanks for sharing, Kat, and would love to hear what Sadhguru has to say about this too. And with that,
let's start the video.
So my express mission is to see that every human being is doing everything that they can do with a sense of inclusiveness. Selfishness is the only way you can be inclusive. What does selfless mean? What does selfless mean? You'll stop breathing, is it?
wow.
I'm saying it's just an idea which has never happened.
True.
It is just a foolish idea. There is no such thing as selfless because the very basis of your experience is self.
Do you agree?
I do agree with that. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Question is your selfishness inclusive or exclusive? That's all.
That's it.
Voila. Don't be stingy with your selfishness.
No, don't be stingy with selfishness.
I like that.
At least with selfishness, be generous.
So very short but sweet video on selfishness. What's your take, Kat?
Honestly, I'm a little confused. So, because the way that he described selfishness and selflessness, like I agreed with the things he was saying. I'm just not, I wouldn't call that selfish or selfless. So I think I'm getting hung up on the words.
What would you call it instead if there's another way to look at it, maybe with more clarity?
So like I would call it selfless when you put other people before yourself. So, you know, maybe you want something, but you're willing to sacrifice that to help somebody else out. So, but you're still the one making the choice to do that. So I'm not sure, like, is he saying that that's still yourself, so therefore it's not selfless? Like, to me, that's the definition of selfless. And he was talking about...
What's the exact, tell me again the definition that you had in mind for selfless?
Putting other people before your wants.
Okay. Okay, so that's fair. I guess I'll quickly just start by saying this is actually a 30-second or 50-second short or like a snippet of like an hour-long conversation between, Sadhguru and Matthew McConaughey, who's actually a famous Hollywood actor. He's been in The Wolf of Wall Street. I think he's the main actor for Interstellar, which is one of my favorite movies. Have you seen that before?
Good movie, yeah.
So, the key here is, I guess, just the first thing to be aware of, which is like it's a snippet, so maybe a lot of context missing, right?
Yeah, and as part of that context, defining selfishness, like that I think was the theme of the talk. So how does he define selfishness, or how do you define it?
Great question. So I'll answer that, but I also want to just mention real quick that so I'm here for a reason because I actually did see the whole thing, so I can help provide that context. But that's a good question. So let me tell you this. I'll tell you how I used to view selfishness, and then how I view it now after knowing what he has said, because I think he's definitely shed some cool light on this. So I used to view selfish just like anyone else, right? Which was you being egoic. The way you put it, I think was great. You stepping on other people's shoes and like on over other people. Then I viewed it a bit more in the sense of like just self-improvement. So it's still focusing on yourself. But then I think currently where I lay with it is this. So I'll get into this analogy which he has, which I think you'll really love. But before I get into that, I think it goes back to the other video we just made together, which we discussed the importance of being self-focused at times.
Right.
It's not at times, I think all the time, because if you're not focused on yourself, you can't give your best to others, right? Would you say you relate to that?
True. Yeah, that is absolutely true. Mm-hmm.
And so with that being said, here's the analogy, which I think is again, maybe hyping it up too much, but I still love it. So let me ask you this. If you were to, making this up, let's say you had a lot of money, so you have your food, you have your shelter,
Yeah.
but you still decide to go, I don't know, you go to this food bank, which is obviously meant for people that don't have it, and you decide to steal a sandwich. Would you consider yourself selfish in that example?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's just say you had a family to feed and now you don't have the money, right? And there's other families that also need it, but they're waiting in line and they're being very fair about it. So what you're doing is skipping that and sneaking in and stealing the food. But this time it's for your family. And for you, obviously, because you're part of the family. Would you consider that selfish?
That one's trickier. I might, honestly, like, even though it's for other people. Interesting. Yeah.
Okay, now let's go and make that a bit bigger now.
Okay.
Let's just say you're a country, right? And again, just to keep it simple for the example, similar example, right? There's a poor country, and there's many poor countries out there, but they decide to, I don't know, hack their way into stealing certain money from, let's say, the richer countries. But there was a system put into place to where it was supposed to be given in a even and equal way, but this one country, which is millions of people now, I'm making this up, by the way, there's no countries I'm pinpointing, just an example here, just in case y'all were wondering, just as a made-up example. But anyways, the point is, you do the same thing, you steal the money, but it's to feed your poor people. Would you consider that selfish?
Right now, no.
Why is that?
Because it seems like a better use of the money.
Okay. I think, and it's okay to have maybe not the most sure view on this, because I know I just brought this example to you. I would say it is selfish because you're still putting your people first, and you're literally stepping over other people.
I would agree. Yeah. It's hard to call it selfish because it feels like, but it's helping them. So But yeah, no, I guess it is selfish.
Exactly. So here's the key, and this is what he beautifully says. Being selfish, it's actually a very subjective thing. So whether you're doing it for yourself, whether you're doing it for your family, your religion, your country, being selfish is actually a very good thing. The key is how consciously inclusive is your selfish.
I did hear him using those words, and they confused me a little bit. Inclusive.
So does it make more sense now?
Yeah.
And so the key is, are you being selfish for the world, or are you being selfish for just your family or just your people? Does that make sense?
So I think so, but like, is the idea the more inclusive you are, the better it is?
Exactly. The reason why you're stealing for your family is because you include them as yours. The reason that country is stealing for their people is because they consider those people as yours. Now, what if you considered the whole world as yours? Wouldn't you just do good for everyone?
Wow, yeah.
And so the key here, again, is to focus on how selfish is good, number one. But number two, the reason selfless is not the best, he says, because of what you shared with your other example. And I think something we all know, which is maybe another example, analogy, which we all know about, which is the airplane mask analogy. Like they always tell you when you're in a plane, put your mask on first, then put your mask on for your kid or whoever. Because if you don't do that, then not only are you hurting yourself and you'll screw yourself over, you're screwing others over too.
Yeah, that's true.
So now that I've shared these analogies, what's going through your mind? I'd love to hear what you're thinking. And again, whether you agree, disagree, doesn't matter. Let's hear it.
I agree, but I'm still trying to work out like some what if scenarios.
Let's hear it.
But like, what about when you, like, for example, if you want something, but you decide to give it up for somebody else? How is that? Is that selfish because you care about that other person? Like, how is that part of the being selfish one? It's still a good thing to do. It's not necessarily hurting you to give up that thing. You're doing it out of whether it's love for somebody or somebody needs it or something like that. It's part of taking care of the world.
Are you saying that when you do something for someone else, like you're sacrificing, for example, one of your things?
Right. So like you're taking away from yourself, maybe something that you want or desire you have for somebody else. So if your selfishness includes the whole world, I understand how that's still considered selfish. But like, to me, that's also being selfless because you're saying that's more important than me.
So this will be a little bit of a side topic, which I guess we can touch into a bit, because I think you raised some really good points. Now let's first break that down, right? So I think the key here is, again, the reason you're doing that for someone else is because it kind of goes back to a point you mentioned before, which is you're seeing yourself in the other person. And that is why you're doing it. So it is still selfish. So you're not really sacrificing anything because that person is you.
Okay, I like that. I like that way of seeing it.
In fact, there was actually a really famous sage. His name is Ramana Maharishi. Have you heard of him?
No.
He was actually asked this question, and he was a wise guy, and people used to always ask him all sorts of questions. And this is the question. How do you treat others, right? Deep question, I think something we all maybe think about. And his very simple response was, there is no other. What do you think? Does that make sense?
I would have to think about that.
Hey, these are deep things, right? So that's okay. It's definitely okay to think about it. And I guess the key there is that, like, when he was asked, like, how do you treat others? The key is, again, if you can see yourself in everyone, the question now becomes, how do you treat yourself?
Yeah, I do agree with that. I do like that. Yeah, it comes in a different way of viewing the world. Yeah.
And the last thing which I'll touch on, not to get too much into this because it's definitely a little more complex, and I think I myself am still trying to experience it, because again, we can talk about it. It goes back to what we've said before, right? I think it's easier to talk about these things versus practicing it is not the easiest, right? But it's important to be aware because, again, I would definitely say if my family was in a tough position, I would do anything possible for them. So it makes sense, right? So now it's just expanding your inclusiveness to the world. Again, easier said than done, but the key is to practice it. So the quick point I want to mention is, yeah, you can just like very simply and like, what's the word? I mean, just say like, oh yeah, I see you and me, and like, you know, we're all the same, and like, but it's, again, easier to say, and like, do you really mean it? Number one. And number two, are you actually experiencing it? Because with my family, I'll be honest, I'm experiencing it because it's like that blood connection that we have. But then look at it this way, right? Imagine you're an orphan and you don't have that blood connection, but I'm sure you'd feel the same way because it's your family. So notice how it's not even the blood, but it's like how you're able to actually connect. If you were to touch yourself, right? Like, let's just say your hands are together. Perfect, there we go, just like that. Are you touching yourself?
Yeah.
Are you feeling yourself?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because I am myself.
I think the key is that you are experiencing the sensory effects of your touch, correct?
Yes.
So if you were to touch, let's just say, the door, right? You're feeling it, but are you feeling it as you? Is that you?
In my fingers, yes, but it doesn't feel like me because it's the door.
Yes. So what makes your fingers, when you touch your other fingers, you, but then not the door you?
I know the feeling. I'm familiar with the feeling.
You're experiencing the sensation of it, correct?
Yes, and I recognize the feeling.
Okay, let's say your eyes are closed, right? So you don't have to even see it at this point. But if you were to just rub your hands together, one hand is touching another, and you're experiencing the feeling, correct?
Yeah.
But now if you were to touch a door with your eyes closed, you're experiencing the feeling of your hands on the door, but not the door to your hand. Is that correct?
Right.
What if you could experience it the other way too?
Be weird.
It would be weird. And people might call you crazy, or like they would call me crazy too, right? Like if I tell you the door is me. But here's the key, and this is, hopefully it'll make sense. The key is the self, as we describe it, is whatever is within our bounds of experience.
Okay.
So the door is not me because I'm not experiencing the door as me. But if I could actually feel it, and let's say you touched it, I felt that touch, you're touching me, right? Indirectly, then you are technically touching me. Does that make sense?
I think I'm following you, yeah.
So the key is whatever is within your bounds of experience becomes you.
Okay.
And again, these are examples that Sadhguru himself talks about, so maybe I'm not doing the best job here, so just heads up on that. But let's just say you were to have a cup of water. Is that cup of water you?
No.
Now you drink it, does that become you?
I think that's debatable.
Why is it debatable?
Because my body's still processing it. I think when your body processes it and adds the nutrients to yourself, then it becomes you.
But it's still becoming you.
It is becoming you, yes.
So maybe not all of it, maybe it does come out, right?
Right,
But
because it's inside you doesn't mean it's part of you yet. Like your body has to process it.
correct. But eventually does become you. Mm-hmm. So do you notice how the water which was outside your bounds of experience eventually becomes a part of your experience and now it is you?
Yes.
So the key here is, again, I don't know how, this is where these yogic practices come, where the meditation practices come, and it comes down to learning to expand your bounds of experience, which would in turn help you to expand your bounds of inclusiveness, which would in turn help you to expand your sense of self, which in turn will help you be selfish for the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Hopefully it's connected. I know it's a little out there, but
So you just have to go and eat and drink everything and then process. No, I'm just kidding.
that was funny. I love this. And here's the key, right? I think it's important to take these things like in a not so serious tone, but hopefully the point is coming across.
Yeah.
And if anything, we'd love to hear what you all think about what I just shared, the analogies, the topic about selfish. Do you still think it's a good thing or a bad thing? Let us know in the comments down below. And let the viewers know, Kat, where they can find you.
Oh, yeah. So if you're interested in seeing more of my modeling, it's on Instagram. EWYN.modeling is my account. I'm hoping someday to have like a website where I can organize things better and share more of my work. But for now, that's where you can find me if you want to.
Yeah, all of our stuff will be down below. And if you have any other video reaction requests, topic requests, or guests that you want to see on the show, you can also comment down below. And with that, make a great day. Take this joyful and stay conscious. Awesome job, Kay. You did great.
Thank you.
Awesome.
We did that
Perfect.
again.
There we go. I'll have to switch it up.